Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us, whether you are in the Zoom call, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitch. We want to welcome you to this edition of Product People's community event. Today, we have the CPO of Spendesk with us, James Colgan, talking a bit about transformation from sales-led to product-led growth. Before we get to that, just a quick introduction of myself and Product People as well. So I'm your host today. My name is Evan. I'm an account executive with Product People. My background is actually in industrial process engineering, obviously a background in sales operations and account management. So today's topic definitely hits close to home, as I'm sure it does for a lot of you who sort of are in the same stage of trying to transition from sales-led to product-led. And then as well, a bit of a background in human-computer interaction, human factors, etc. And a bit of background on Product People, who we are, what we do. So first and foremost, our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. And how do we do that? We do this by with a interim and fractional product management service. So we do the unglamorous hands-on work of product managers, owners, ops, product leaders on interim and fractional basis, so 3+ months and beyond. And we specialize in onboarding fast, aligning teams, and delivering outcomes with our community members of 25,000. So if you're watching this today, you are a part of that 25,000 product managers, product owners, product leaders, or just interested in product initiatives and bringing great products to market. So thank you all for joining us. But first, we also want to get to know you a bit more. So I have here a quick poll that we're going to send out. You should be seeing this in the Zoom pretty soon. And if you are watching on any of the other streaming channels, feel free to write your answers into the comments just to get a good idea of who's watching and where you are in relation to this transitioning from sales-led to product-led growth. So our first question, which key attributes are crucial for a successful transformation from a sales-led to a product-led growth model? A, clear communication between product leaders, CMO and CRO partners. B, effective collaboration between sales and product teams. C, focus on customer-centric approach and user satisfaction. D, implementing a hybrid model for efficient growth and scale. And our second question, how can product leaders effectively work with their CMO and CRO partners during the transformation process? A, aligning sales and product strategies for a seamless transition. B, building cross-functional teams to drive collaboration. C, leveraging customer and user insights to inform product development. Or D, emphasizing the importance of a hybrid model for sustainable growth and scale. So go ahead and submit your answers there. Really curious to know here, and I'll introduce James really quick back to the survey right after that. So again, we have here James Colgan, the CPO of Spendesk, again giving his talk on sales-led, transitioning from sales-led to product-led growth. We're really looking forward to his talk. We have the results of the poll here as well, so just going to shout these out for you. So in question number 1, go back here. Question number 1, which key attributes are crucial for a successful transformation from sales-led to product-led growth? 71% of people said clear communication between product leaders. And for number 2, how can product leaders effectively work with their CMO and CRO partners during the transformation process? 57, so the highest number here, 57% said leveraging customer and user insights to inform product development. It's very interesting there. I'm going to kick it over to James again, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And James, you can take the mic and go ahead with your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Evan. Let me just share my screen. And just to clarify, So James Colgan, I'm actually the ex-CPO of Spendesk. I just recently left. Myself and my family are moving back to San Francisco in just a couple of weeks. So we're very busy in the Colgan household. But I had the privilege of serving over there with the Spendesk executive team. And today what I'm going to be talking about is really how to collaborate really with the rest of your executive peers as Chief Product Officer to ensure that you're able to make this transition, not just from a sales-led to a product-led company, but really how to develop a hybrid. These two things need to be integrated to be truly successful. So taking a step back and really talking about how to support those executives that you're going to be partnering with to be successful as a company. So first of all, and this really gets to one of the heart of the matter, is why transform it in the first place? If you're moving forward with a sales-led model, why do you need to transform into this hybrid model? And the first thing is really looking at it through the lens of the other members on the executive leadership team, right? So first of all, the chief financial officer, the CFO, especially in 2023 when we've got this macroeconomic headwinds that we're all working against, is a lot of the unit economics, right? And in particular, the CFO is very focused on efficiency. And you'll hear that word used an awful lot as you look around the industry, where people are focusing on utilization of capital and efficiency. And from a product perspective, that really dials down to a single unit, and that's customer acquisition cost, CAC payback, so CAC payback. With your chief marketing officer, they're also looking to improve overall efficiency. And the way that you can help them is by deepening their marketing mix, the way that they can better leverage the product itself to be more efficient in reaching out into the marketplace and then bringing users in, especially with demand generation. That's more simply CAC, customer acquisition costs. With your chief revenue officer, what they're really looking to do is increase the average contract value, the ACV of your product. And that's where you can really invest in those differentiated high value features and products that's going to move and enable the sales folks to expand and increase their ACV and ultimately the LTV, the lifetime value of their customer. And then with the CTOs, you're moving from an SLG model to a PLG model. We're not really going to talk about this today, but just for reference, this is how you can help them build greater structure to how they're organizing the engineering organization and get better alignment between product, design, and engineering. Okay, so first of all, getting back to the chief financial officer, the CFO, the conversation that they're having with your investors is something along these lines. It's which quadrant are you in as a company? So if you've got on the y-axis there, you've got year-on-year growth, and on the x-axis, you've got the burn multiple. And the definitions of each of those are actually in there over on the right-hand side, where you've got growth is ARR of this year divided by ARR of last year, and you want that to be as high as possible. And then burn multiple is net burn divided by net new ARR, okay? So what are you burning? How many euros are you spending to get a euro through the door? And in the past, you had the top left-hand corner, 2020, 2021, 22 in particular, where there was a lot of growth, but it was very expensive to get those growth. In the bottom left-hand corner, that's where you're spending a lot of money, but getting not an awful lot of growth either. And that's obviously not a good place to be. The bottom right-hand corner, that's where you're not spending an awful lot of money, but you've got low growth as well. So you're kind of churning over. It's kind of like a lifestyle type of a business, and VCs aren't very interested in that. Where you really want to be is in this top right-hand corner, where you've got high growth and it's very efficient growth. It's a low burn multiple. And there is a correlation here between the different growth models and where you actually sit, right? So in the top left-hand corner, ostensibly, you've got a pure sales-led growth model where as you're growing, you're hiring more BDRs and SDRs, sales folks, account executives, to actually get those customers over the line and start to monetize them. And obviously humans are expensive. And so you've got high cost, but you've also got high growth as long as you've got product market fit. Okay, so if you've on the top right-hand corner and you're a pure product-led growth model, that's where, because software is relatively cheap, you've just got your COGS, your costs of the servers, etc. to actually drive the flywheels that are running. And that'd be the type of model that we had obviously over at Slack. And that's where you've got very high growth at very low cost, okay? And so that's where your CFO is looking, and you're looking to actually move from the right-hand side into the left-hand side into the right-hand side of that. How do you actually do that? And this is what it actually looks like in terms of customer acquisition. From a sales-led growth model, as you can see by this curve here, or this straight line rather, every salesperson, every customer that you get gets N customers through the door. So it's got linear growth. With product-led growth, that's where you've got this nice delta and this potentially exponential growth, where you effectively have these flywheels. The product is doing the work and your users are doing the work to get more customers through the door. So your customers are going up through to the millions. And this is where you get from product market fit to scale, and then you accelerate. And it's this transition at the scale phase, which is incredibly challenging, where you really need to partner with the rest of the executive team, because you're going to be investing in product while you're investing in sales at the same time. So it's a very tricky place for a company to be. It needs to be managed very closely. There you start thinking about the CRO and how to effectively get ARR growth. That is where you have, again, where the product is able to bring people and customers and users through the door. And really what you're doing here is switching your sales organization from focusing on getting customers through the door and getting on your low-end SKU, your low-end package, and really focusing those very valuable and very effective human resources on expansion, upgrades, and upsells, right? And that's where you get that exponential growth in terms of revenues itself. And ultimately, again, for your CFO, what you're looking to do is get your CAC payback to less than 15 months. And that's what that signifies that you're starting to build an efficient business, an efficient growth engine, an efficient way to leverage and utilize capital. Again, that's what your CFO is really interested in looking at. So how do we actually get there? So extraordinarily simplified, right? And this is the worst case scenario, but in a sales-led growth customer company, the customer journey basically looks like this. So in the white, you've got humans, and in the red, you've got software. So you've got your demand generation team. They're actually going out and they're probably using paid search to drive people in from Facebook, from LinkedIn, etc., to get people to your website. The website is a very rudimentary, basically brochureware. And there you're getting marketing qualified leads. They're being handed over to a full stack salesperson that are getting people through the door and signing the contract, so to speak. Then you've got customer onboarding that's helping humans to create an account. Maybe the sales folks are using a demo version of your product that isn't actually connected to your actual product. Again, worst case scenario. If you're in the finance, in the fintech field, you've got KYC or KYB to go through. That is usually a very, very manual process. Then you've got to re-onboard your customers. Then you've finally got users and you're off to the races. But that's a very long and very expensive process to go through. With a PLG model, there's a lot more investment that needs to be done in the software, but you end up getting a lot more efficient growth. On the left-hand side, that's where we're talking about a much deeper marketing mix. It's not just about paid search, but there's lots of investments that your CMO can be making that's going to enable you to be much more efficient and much more effective in driving demand into the front end of your funnel. Then what you've got is an immersive website, something that's connected directly into your product itself. So that as a user is playing around with a particular, it could be as simple as a GIF, but it's a way for your user to get a sense of the value. And so that as they're going into the account creation, it's a seamless transition, right? And then you're going to go through the process of onboarding as much as possible using software. And again, if you're in the fintech field, you're doing some sort of a light KYC before you have to get a human involved. Setup is done by the user themselves, and then the user. So you've got this streamlined flow through. How else can you help reduce costs? Well, you can reduce costs through partnerships. That's where you build out an API, you have integrations, or even better, you have a full-blown platform that you can actually build upon. Your CRO is going to love this as well, because then they can use that platform to start a distribution model out through their partners, where you actually have your partner's sales team selling your product for you. So again, reducing customer acquisition costs, reducing CAC payback, and ensuring you've got a much better, deeper penetration into the market. The optimization that goes on there, that's where your customer success folks are. Instead of helping a user to onboard and just set up their configuration for your B2B product, your enterprise product, they're really focused on optimizing the utility and the usage of your product by configuring it for their specific need. So customer success is not about how to use the product, it's how to use the product better or get more value out of it. Okay. So what does that mean in terms of how your funnel transforms? So again, this is the way that your CRO is thinking about their distribution of resources. You've got acquisition, activation, monetization, and expansion. And you've got humans involved through this entire flow. And you've probably got MQLs, marketing qualified leads, keying off of your website that's going to be driving into Salesforce or some other CRM, that your sales, your full stack account executives are going to be in there, or your BDRs are going to be in there, essentially diving for dollars. Okay. What this looks like when you move over to a PLG model is the account creation onboarding, the point at which you not close a sale, but you get a user, is much further towards the front end of this funnel. And you've got a lot of software involved in acquisition and activation. And you've got the software, the product itself, building engagement, because that's ultimately what you want to be getting to. And it's really through the generation of product qualified leads, PQLs, that you've got maybe a lower number of absolute users that are coming through, but a higher percentage of conversion. So your ultimate dollar conversion rate is higher. And that's where you start involving your sales teams that are not just involved in monetization, closing a deal, but they're actually more involved in upgrades and expansion. How do we get more users on board? How do we get customers to upgrade to the higher costing SKUs to increase your overall average contract value? Okay. And the other big difference to call out here between the SLG and the PLG model is it's really the efficiency through all of this and the handoff between product and between sales that you actually end up needing this hybrid model. And this is what we're referring to here. Your product works on the front end, sales or the revenue or the commercial organization is on the back end, and there's an overlap in the middle. Now, obviously, this is a massive simplification. But this is why you need to be sitting down with your CRO, with your chief sales officer, chief revenue officer, and really getting into the metrics, the funnel that they're driving and how you can optimize. Also sit down with your CMO, your chief marketing officer, and look at the front end, not only of how you can help demand generation, but things like how notifications are being sent out, whether that's through push notifications or through email notifications. You can help automate that flow. They need to be responsible in writing a copy for it and doing multivariate testing around that to make sure you're improving conversion rates. But again, this is where you come together as a team and you operate collectively to really ensure that you've got as wide a funnel at the front end and it's as efficient as possible to get through to the back end of that conversion, monetization, and upgrades. So just to round this out, just some high order bits and things to focus on. With your CFO, obviously they've got an accurate picture of the status and the targets, things that the investors are looking for, your CEO and your investors are looking for. It's about unit economics, the number one being CAC payback, but there are others as well, such as ARR per FTE, right? As you're looking balancing between investment in humans and software, we can obviously, as product people working with engineering, we can increase the average annual revenue run rate per full-time employee. And then the investment ratios as well. You need to be very, very sensitive to these as you're making this transition, right? Because there's going to be a point where you're investing heavily on product design and engineering while you're still maintaining the current SLG flight path. And that ends up being a very heavy and somewhat expensive, and you want to be able to get through that as quickly as possible. With your CRO, There you're looking to stage the transition in phases. Okay, lots of communication, lots of understanding and mutual collaboration on how to actually transition the sales organization with the marketing organization and ensure that you're creating value and you're improving their operational efficiency. With your CMO, that's where you're really looking at this iterative go-to-market motion, where you're landing features and you've got a sophisticated deep product marketing mix to ensure you're getting that that message out there. Close the messaging value delivery loop, so you're not working in isolation. Again, we're talking about notifications, email notifications as one example. And then demand generation is absolutely key. And then just to touch on this a little bit, working with the CTO, right? What you're really looking to do is work very closely with them to make sure that you're building a high velocity value delivery engine, right? Ultimately, it's all about operations within engineering, how you can quickly and efficiently execute, deliver the value, and then keep moving forward, right? So align squads with value delivery, align squads with user journeys, roles and personas, so everyone's talking the same language. Balance the investments between architectural foundations and value creation, right? You'll have your engineering friends going to be talking a lot about tech debt, right? So you need to be able to balance value delivery, whether it's differentiated or it's standard value that's going to enable sales to close particular deals. And then what is needed for tech debt, whether it's quality, reliability, performance, or maybe there's a part of the code base that needs absolutely re-architecting for maybe not the next thing, but the next thing after that you need to be building. So you've got to be able to balance this collectively. And then obviously be able to iteratively improve operational excellence, right? So that is, again, looking at how you're building. What does your product development process look like? How quickly you're getting through discovery? Do you really need to do discovery that deep? Or can you do a design sprint for like 4 days, understand what needs to get built, build a prototype that becomes your working PRD, and then iterate very, very quickly to deliver the value, and then build and expand upon that. So operationally, again, CAC payback reduction, right? So in terms of reducing customer acquisition costs, build out a self-serve onboarding flow, enable a free product, look at how you're actually feature flagging the features within your particular SKUs. Is there something that you can carve out as a free product to get people in the door so they can experience value that your sales folks can close? MRR, monthly recurring revenue. Increase the value of the velocity of value delivery. What does that mean? Make sure that you're investing in your high-end SKU. Why do you want to invest in your high-end SKU? It'll keep your CMO happy because you're going to have something more interesting to talk about. You're differentiated in the marketplace. Sales are going to be very happy because they're going to have a reason to talk to customers to upgrade and upsell them. Net dollar retention, right? Net retention rate, increased value and embed it in your customer's life. This is where research, user research, product research can really help. What is the context within which your users are using your product outside of using the product, and how do you better ensure that they keep on coming back to your product? Not by annoying notifications, but by delivering invaluable value. And then ACV, again, average contract value, making sure you've got the upgrades and upsells that's happening. And then at a macro level, ARR per FTE, annual recurring revenue per full-time employee. Look at your pricing and packaging, work with product marketing, work with the CRO. How can we slice and dice things a little bit better to ensure you're getting through to expansion quicker? Or maybe you want to have a lower end SKU that you can get people in the front end quicker. Make advanced features discoverable, right? That 1 day journey, that 1 day, first day experience. As people are using your product, how do they become aware of more valuable features within the product? So the product is used to promote the product and sell the product, right? And then move customer success up the value chain. Make your product so easy to use, nobody needs to explain it, right? Customer success is not product success, it's the user success. Successful users are those that can get the most value out of your product. So once they're getting customers and users to experience more value, then they're in the business of selling more value or upgrading, so sales can go in there and actually close a higher sale, and they're being much more efficient and more effective at it. So a real whistle-stop tour through a very large number of points in how to work with and collaborate with the different members of your executive team. And I'll open it now for any questions you have from the floor.
Yeah, James, I'll take over the screen share now. Thank you very much for that. Very insightful. So right now, yeah, Q&A. Thank you for listening. Please share your questions with us while you guys are typing your questions into the YouTube comments, the Twitch comments, or even here on Zoom. We'll be taking note of those and relaying to James in a bit. But first, I want to go into a little bit more on product people and when you would use us. So as I mentioned before, Product People is a product management consultancy specializing in interim and fractional product managers. And so some of the reasons that you would engage us would be for permanent position covers. Maybe the hiring is taking longer than you're expecting, parental leave covers, and important and urgent initiatives. So as product leaders, we all know that hiring is obviously an excruciating ordeal. And when we are stagnant and we're trying to cover positions or fill positions, this is best when to introduce interim to make sure that that change is seamless and you're bridging that gap. As well for product coaching and consultants. So Product People keeps product leaders and VPs and directors of product on staff for these exact circumstances. So to upskill your team, to level up your team, and to appraise skills and set up personal developments for your product management team. If you need to bring in a leader to really grow and scale your product management team, then Product People is a great selection for that. As well as product discovery. So discovering the next impactful initiative or product, as well as running a low-code pilot or MVP. Product People is there for that as well. What we're not doing. So Product People, we are not recruiters. So we are not sourcing candidates. All of our PMs are in-house FTEs of Product People. We're not a freelance marketplace either. Our PMs join us after a 7-step recruitment process, tendering to each team member's development and run 360 feedback sessions every 1 to 3 months. And we're also not a development/design agency. That being said, we do work closely and we are very friendly with the third parties as their supplier or referral partner, as we're always trying to build up the community, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship for both parties. Some of our clients that we've consulted with here are B2C clients. You see Zalando, Tier, Omio, and then our B2B clients as well in health tech, in data analytics, and in ed tech as well. Some of the positive feedback from our clients. Again, we specialize in remote and quick onboarding. Quick onboarding is our specialty because, as we know, that in these periods when an interim is needed, time is precious. And so this is our specialty, as well as delivering great products, delivering great initiatives for our clients. Some Product People stats. So 200 cross-functional teams supported, 40 product leaders and product managers in-house, and then something that we're particularly proud of, 60% women in the team, including 66% in leadership. Some of the friendly faces you see here, and in the bottom right, one empty slide, and the reason for that is because we're hiring. We're always hiring for new product managers on associate levels and senior levels. So please feel free to head over to the getproductpeople.com and our career page to send in an application. Okay, back to Q&A. Hopefully you have submitted your questions. I'll relay them to James now.
Got one in the Zoom from Suba that I can maybe touch on.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Great. So the question for everybody is there a right time, or in other words, at what stage of the company we should think about transitioning from SLG to PLG? That's a really, I'm trying to not to be too flippant about it, but you should always be thinking about it and looking to layer this in. So if we think about it, let's think about it in these terms. Let me share my screen again. Can I?
Yes. Yeah, I'll jump off.
There we go. Awesome. There we go. Oh, let's do that. So if we look at this as a representation of the phases of a company, right? You've got product market fit, where you've got hundreds of customers, scale, and you've got to accelerate here. The implication here is that you can maybe start looking at layering in PLG once you get to scale, but the reality is it depends very much on your business, right? Obviously, a consumer play is very much PLG right from the word go. It's very hard to address billions of humans on the planet with a sales force. If it's B2B, that's probably the way you're coming from, and it's a little bit more nuanced. And there are extremes, right? On the one end, you've got Slack, where I came from, and there we had no salespeople for a long time. It's a collaboration and a communication tool, as I'm sure a lot of people on the call are using. And that itself has some inherent flywheels built into it, right? You don't have communication on your own. But really, that flywheel is built upon a core product and a core value proposition that is differentiated and unique in the industry. So you've got to have a core product to start off with, but you can immediately start to layer in product-led growth tactics. But ultimately, you want to be looking at how to work closely with sales to ensure you've got both things happening at the same time. So, for example, if you built out your product and your company, and you've got thousands of customers, and you're in, let's see if I can go to it here, and you're in this situation, right? Where you've got a demo that is a separate instance of your product, and you're having to update two code bases essentially and keep on pushing from into demo as well as pushing into prod on your main product. Moving from this very much SLG old school world into a modern hybrid mode is going to be very, very expensive, right? Going from here to here, there's an awful lot of work to do. But it's like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant, right? One mouthful at a time. And this is where the collaboration really comes in play, both looking to your CFO to really understand where your investments and your resource allocations are being placed at this along the customer journey, and what sort of low-hanging fruit can actually be created to make the overall company and this process much more efficient. Right? So working very closely with your marketing organization, you can start looking at the website and the product itself and start saying, collapsing both of those, where you're starting taking a very simple brochure type of a website and start building out a front end of your product, where product marketing and marketing communications can be focusing on the content. But then you've got product and design actually working on that front-end user experience to get people through the front end of that quickly as possible. You can start layering in very simple and third-party tools around email notifications. Again, where products and engineering can be working on the infrastructure, and then your marketing folks can actually start putting in and start experimenting around the messaging that's actually sent out there. So you are effectively having product-led growth flywheels turning already without having to do some of the real heavy lifting that would involve really looking at your onboarding flow, which can often be quite expensive. The other thing that you should be doing anyway, and that's going to help you not only in the short term, but in the long term, make sure that you're getting feature flagging built in. Why do I say that? First of all, you're able to be more flexible around your pricing and packaging, so you can collaborate with the CRO and the CMO to get the right marketing mix to accelerate throughput through the funnel. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to select features according to particular cohorts, and make sure that your instrument using amplitude as well, by the way, so you can start looking at more efficient ways to get people through the funnel. The other reason why you want to be doing feature flagging anyway is that you can be better coordinating with product marketing in particular around your product launches, right? So often you'll find in less well-equipped organizations where feature goes out into production and marketing's having to play catch up around messaging and opportunities missed to really get out there, have that big bang, get demand generated, and then be able to help sales with those marketing qualified leads to be much more effective. So put feature flagging in place, make sure you've got a release checklist sorted out, you've got marketing on board, CRO on board, so when you do flip that switch, you're really getting the bang for the buck for the investment that you're making.
Great. Hopefully that answers that question. I have another one here from LinkedIn. How long does it take usually to get that transition done from SLG to PLG? And when is the best time to start the transition?
So I would say with Spendesk, and it takes quarters, if not years, right? Maybe 1-2 years as you're going through that entire process, right? Because not only are you building things, but you're building the team, you're reconstructing and you're reorganizing the team. We didn't really talk about that, but how to go from, say, a monolithic feature factory type of a mode into one that is more value aligned type of organization takes a different set of leaders to be put in place and a different product design and engineering organization to support that. And doing an organizational transformation, in reality, that can take a year in and of itself. In the meantime, you're up-leveling your entire product organization, your design organization, your product development processes are also being revamped, as well as you're modernizing all of those. And you're doing that in parallel, and that's going to take a few quarters as well. And then you've also got to roll this out to marketing and to sales and that whole transition. So first of all, I was going to say from beginning to end, but ultimately there is no end. It's from beginning to a point where you've made that transition. I would say it's a good 18 months. And so setting expectations with your partners early on about how long it's going to take, what sort of phases are on that journey, and make sure you're communicating constantly about what those phases are and set expectations correctly. That's going to be very, very helpful as you're going through that transition.
Okay, great. I see a hand up here from Marv. Marv, if you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is there a business or let's say like a digital business that PLG doesn't really fit for it? Because I'm seeing a lot of businesses these days just kind of jumping on, like PLG, almost like they feel like because they have to. So I'm wondering, like, what type of businesses do you think that it doesn't really fit when it comes to digital businesses?
Yeah. Something that immediately springs to mind is very high-end enterprise, right? There's a lot that you can actually do. And so at Microsoft, with Microsoft 365, we were able to have some form of product-led growth motions involved, built around Outlook Mobile. But ultimately, to close a deal, and you're talking about, a multi-million-dollar deal, it's going to take a very experienced and a very deep bench in the sales organization. What I mean by sales is there's account executive, technical account executive, customer success. There's quite a lot of people involved, security, and they're going to have to go in there and do a long sell. Right. And there's the technical sale, and then there's the business sale, and then you've got security, and then you've got compliance, etc. So those types of models, it's virtually impossible to actually perform a pure PLG growth type of a model. Even with Slack, for example, right? So we were able to get into tech and dev like startups very easily using PLG, and we're able to get into the SMB space relatively easily. But if we wanted to start closing deals that were above 100,000 or above $1 million per annum, that takes a sales force. And so even though Slack was built off of the idea that, no, we can do this without a sales force. After a couple of years and looking at the aspirations about how to get to $1 billion ARR company, the sales force is required. And that's when you start selling into the larger enterprises. So if you're selling into VMware, Nike, these types of brands, again, that's where you're going to really need sales. The other part as well that really, and this is where fintech depends on what aspect of fintech that you're actually in. But if you've got to go through KYC or you've got to go through KYB, then ultimately you're going to need a sales-led type of a model to do that. And then obviously where regulatory compliance is burdensome, when security is particularly going into government, for example, if you're going to government, getting a product-led growth model into government would be very, very hard. So hopefully that gives you a flavor, but it definitely depends on the vertical you're going after.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marv. Gaurav, I see that you have a question as well. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, James, excellent presentation, loved it. And in fact, your previous response is a perfect segue into my question, actually. And this is really the case where you have either a large enterprise application or you have an application that's deployed at so many sites, customer sites, that in order for you to effect product-led growth, it really takes not a year, 2 years, but it takes multiples of years. My personal experiences, and we sell to the government, and for us, we are just 2 years into the journey, and we are far from actually achieving, really tangible gains. Because when you sell to large enterprises or to the government sectors, you have to really have both product-led growth and sales-led growth, and in fact, more of sales-led as compared to product-led growth, as you correctly identified, because you really can't get away from that. And my experience has been that instead of that pure and I really look retention has been really that key effect of moving to product-led growth. So, the government in this journey at enterprise application so many. So, do you have any tips for quick wins that you would actually say?
Gaurav, I just want to interrupt because I think that
you're see some tangible value that's coming out of this exercise.
Yeah, thanks, Gaurav. Yeah, go on, Evan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gaurav, you were breaking up a little bit. James, I don't know if you caught the question, but I was going to ask if you could either type it or re-ask it again. Maybe if with the video off, sometimes that helps. Okay, yeah, he'll go ahead and type it. In the meantime, I'll ask another one from YouTube. Have it here. How important is it to prioritize the customer and user perspective when transitioning to a product-led growth model? What are some best practices for incorporating the user-centric approach into the organization's culture and decision-making process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything starts with the user. We often use the word customer, and customers are important because it's the customers that pay the bills, but it's really the user that needs to be at the heart of everything. And so, yeah, it starts and ends with the customer. So how do you ensure that your product folks, and I say product people, it's not just PMs, it's not just designers, but engineers as well. How do you get in front of the user, either actually or metaphorically, to really understand their context, so you can take that back in to the company when you're having these discussions around features, functions to build, value to deliver, or potentially flywheels that you want to be turning, and then I'll talk about notifications in a second. So how do you actually do that? First of all, like I said, there's nothing better than sitting down in front of a customer directly. So for example, at Microsoft, I would sit down and say, okay, I want to talk to an executive, a midline manager, and I want to talk to an individual contributor. And you're not necessarily talking about your product. I was in Outlook at the time. I wasn't talking about email or calendar. I wanted to understand that person. You know, what time do you get up in the morning? How do you go to work? How many meetings do you have? Are they all remote? What is the walk a mile in their shoes to really understand them? So when you go back in and you're having these discussions and debates with the rest of your team, you've really got the context of the user at the center of it. When you start having that in terms of, and so there are other ways to do it as well, through surveys, through quantitative analytics. You can actually do qualitative surveys as well using user research or product research people. There's a lot that you can do with user voice or other ways you can get feedback within the product itself. Sales folks are a good source of, I would say, pain or competitive challenges. They know the more basic functionality that needs to get done or needs to get fixed to close particular deals or to enable you to be competitive in the marketplace. You definitely need to be taking that on board. Customer success, they are a great source of information to make you understand how easy or how hard your product is to use. Right? So if they're having to teach users how to use your product rather than have your product understand your user and just get them to use it, then customer success can be a great source of information for that as well. But ultimately, you've got to get in front of the users and lots of different ways to do that. When relative to product-led growth, the canonical example is, hey, I've got a metric that's going up and to the right. We're getting a lot of engagement, a lot of usage because we're sending out all of these push or email notifications. You need to talk to humans to understand why they're actually responding to that notification. That notification could be they're getting value out of it and getting value out of your product. It could be they're going in there because you're really annoying them and you're constantly spamming them with notifications, obviously have a detrimental effect on NRR, right? So you've got to get in front of the humans, and users are always at the center of everything that you do. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, great. We'll circle back to Gaurav's question. For large applications, can you identify quick wins that start displaying value and trigger the transitions to PLG, as such transitions usually take place over multiple years?
Yeah, I can give one example. Yeah, this probably come from Slack, right? So if you've got a large application, it's probably very complex and you've built it up over a long period of time. And maybe you've also had internal conversations. Oh, our information architecture is too complicated. Let's do a redesign. That's a heavy lift, right? A different approach that you could always take, you could take as well, and this is where feature flagging definitely comes in, is take approach of successive revelation, i.e. when somebody lands on your product, they've actually got less functionality available immediately. And as they start to experience and engage with your product, you start opening up more and more functionality. So that'll help guide them through that user journey. And then at some point, there could be a feature that instead of being, I don't know, $100, it's $150. Why not show that feature and say, hey, you're about to do X, or instead of doing X, why don't you do Y? Right? And that's an opportunity to educate, inform the user. There's greater value that could be gotten out of the product itself. That could end up triggering a PQL to have an account executive reach out, or you could actually enable that feature for a month, right? Enable that feature for a month and then get them to use it, and they can keep on using it. If they want to keep on using it, they start to pay for it. So there's lots of different ways within the product itself you can successively reveal value, either value to help them on their path to get more out of your product, but also a different path that you can take them down to upsell and upgrade them, either within product itself, enter credit card here, or alternatively to enable your sales team to engage and get them over the line because they obviously want more value out of your product.
Okay, thank you for that question, Gaurav. Our final question comes from here in the Zoom. What do you think of strategies for a product-led company at pre or early PMF stages? Is it possible to expand revenues by transforming some of the services that can make use of a sales team? In other words, if a startup did not achieve a PMF, is it possible to make use of sales teams to build a hybrid model?
Okay. So that's a tricky one. So we've got to take a step back and say, okay, what are we considering product market fit, right? And there are lots of different definitions for that, but one that I tend to anchor on is, what's the degree of predictability that if you pour in €1 million here, you're going to get 5 million euros out? If you're still in the situation where we don't know that we're really nailing a value proposition for our customer in a predictable and scalable way, then we haven't got product market fit. Let me say that in a different way. A lot of companies will talk to customers and users and they'll say, yes, we love your product. That's not product market fit. It's not just getting 5 or 10 or 100, it's getting predictability as you're going through that process, regardless of how you're trying to drive people through it, whether it's through product-led or whether it's through sales-led, right? So you've got to get that product market fit. Bringing on a sales team, what that's going to enable you to do in a somewhat more scalable way is engage with customers and see if they can sell it. So if you've got a core value proposition, but your onboarding flow, your marketing message isn't quite there yet, this is a really worst case situation. And you can take a sales team that are really good at selling with a very good deck, etc. They can get some customers over the line, right? But again, that's really going to help you engage and understand the value to a greater extent. But I would say that if you're really contracting or building out a sales team to really take something that's hard to sell, that salesperson is probably not going to be around for very long, because they're smart people, and sales folks will only go with what can sell, right? So I would say you need to go back a little bit and really look at establishing product market fit first with product folks, maybe with a small sales team, but really ensure you've got product market fit before you start scaling that sales organization. But it's very, very product and very, very market dependent.
Okay, thank you for all of the questions from everybody on all the streaming platforms, as well as here in the Zoom, and especially thank you to James for the talk and for giving such thorough, insightful answers as well. We hope to see everybody back next for the next talk, and looking forward to it. Thank you again, James.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for your questions, and thank you, product people.